Welcome to Re-Review, where we watch movies from our past with a perspective from today. Your hosts are Matt, Bobby, and Austin, and we love the films from our youth, so we're taking a look back to see if they still hold up. We are continuing our special February Valentine's movie month where we're re-reviewing romantic films, so keep eating those chocolates and smelling those flowers. The details, each of us has selected one love-related film to re-review, and that accounts for 3 films this month, so a randomizer is going to pick the 4th one for us. If you haven't listened to the first episode, we watched My Big Fat Greek Wedding, so go back and take a listen. For our second film, Bobby selected Serendipity. It was released in 2001, directed by Peter Chisum, starring John Cusack, Kate Beckinsale, Jeremy Piven, Bridget Moynahan, and Eugene Levy. This movie dares to ask if you believe in destiny. Now, this is a fair warning. We're spoiling a 22-year-old movie, so if you haven't seen it, we will be revealing key plot points. Oh, what can we say about love, guys? Don't you love montages? Don't you love triangles? Don't you love New York and San Francisco? We get a movie that opens up with these characters who are meeting incidentally over needing to purchase cashmere gloves because it's cold in New York, and it's like a little cute meetup, right? They're like, "Oh, you wanted to buy it, I wanted to buy it, and we're both going to buy it together." No, you keep it because you got a man's. No, you keep it because you got a lady. And oh, this is so funny. We're so cute together. And I think they wanted to keep that vibe throughout the entire film. And whether or not they executed it is, I think, what we have to discuss here more than anything else. I think especially compared to My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and thinking what we want from our love stories, seeing how they set this up, was this too much of this is how people do cheesy rom-coms for you?
It's funny you mentioning that right now just kind of reminded me of the fact that the two main characters only interact for a total of like 10 minutes in this entire movie. Like literally, like they're only in the beginning of it, and then it's just the idea of it. And that might be one of the things that, spoiler alert, bothered me about this movie was the fact that their interaction was very limited. Legit, John Cusack had more interaction with Eugene in this movie than he did with Kate Beckinsale. I might have actually wanted to see that movie. Where was that movie?
Eugene had a lot of on-screen chemistry. We were all going like, "Oh yes, more of him, please."
Oh no, he chewed, man. He chewed it up.
But I mean, so you look at how they set this up. Especially, you're right. Thinking about the on-screen element of the two people we're really supposed to focus on and believe in their potential love. I mean, isn't that kind of the point of the movie with the serendipity and taking things with the chance? That's maybe why they didn't focus or even bring them together sooner than later, because the whole point was we weren't going to see their relationship. We were just going to see them pining for each other in some kind of weird cosmic sense.
But I don't know. I guess the fact that, and I get that this was the early 2000s, and I think that the form of a romantic comedy, even looking at like the poster / DVD cover of this, it reeks of the early 2000 comedy scene or whatever, romantic comedy type stuff. I don't know. Like, to me, I feel like this movie, if it really wanted to play on the theme of serendipity, it wouldn't have been about them so desperately trying to find each other and them just coincidentally like bumping into each other after that opening scene. Like, to me, that would have been a much more interesting thing. To me, this could have really been just renamed like, wannabe stalkers, right? Like, it's very much desperately trying to find each other. I mean, more so for John Cusack's character than for Kate Beckinsale's. Was it Jonathan and Sarah?
But they hinted that she did the same, right?
To some extent, I think that she definitely set herself up for that, right? She was kind of going out of her way. I mean, tricking her friend, making her friend feel like, hey, we're going to go on a New York trip, girls only. And then it turned out that was all just a
Molly Shannon.
Yes.
But I think she had a throwaway line where she said, "Oh, you did all this searching years ago and you got over it. And now you got your weird flute playing man who happened to also be in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. What was his name
Yes.
again?
John Corbett. Yeah.
Yeah.
Early 2000s, all about that, man. I guess it was the hair. It was the
We
hair.
definitely have to see if he gets to be the common theme throughout this month for us.
Yes.
Is that possible? Are we trying to make that happen? But okay, so I guess let's look at the chances of this, and we'll try to make it a little more personal here. You meet someone, would you take a chance on something like this? You know, isn't that why misconnections exist on Craigslist? Right?
Does it still?
Probably not after this. Me personally, this is just my own personal bias towards it. And I think we kind of talked about this during my Big Fat Greek Wedding and a little bit afterwards is I feel like every person has their preference in the type of romantic movies that you watch. I think some people just want the really gushy, feel good nature of romantic movies. Some people want to hurt a little bit when they watch it. They want the drama, the tension. This kind of movie, I feel like falls in the category of the movies that I don't like in romantic movies, where and it does pop up every once in a while. The characters that do have relationships yet somehow find a way to sabotage them in order to be with someone else. There has to be a name for it at this point, but um, to me, the cuteness of the relationship and the way that it plays out in the movie is lost in the fact that they are in maybe not perfect relationships, but at least solid enough relationships. Both of them are in the time period of marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
it's not
engaged,
like
ready to be married.
Yeah, like within minutes of their weddings.
literally. And neither one of them, like, I mean, you could point at, I can't remember his name now, curly hair guy. He was kind of a little bit standoffish. He was very much absorbed in his own world, a little bit selfish for the most part, but he wasn't a terrible person. Like, I'm just thinking about, like, Wedding Singer, right? He wasn't cheating on her. He wasn't,
Lars.
Yeah, Lars wasn't going out of his way to be a bad person. I mean, he went to go see her and all this stuff. So, like, to me, it doesn't at least benefit from the fact that, he's a jerk or something, or cheating on her, or, I feel like any other movie, he would have cheated with Molly Shannon or whatever. Turned out that had happened or something, just to make it so that as an audience, you can sympathize with them wanting to be with the person they met years ago. Right. And that one fateful night. But that just didn't come across. So the entire time I'm just like, what are they doing? Like what are these two people throwing away perfectly healthy relationships for this person that they met for 3 hours in New York? I know I'm ranting.
Agree. No, I 100% agree with you. They had to dirty it up by adding all these other people into it when they could have just had him be single and like having him go through libraries and looking at all of these books or whatever and doing more serendipity stuff, which I thought was kind of fun. Like, I thought it was kind of like National Treasure, like looking for the dollar bills and the like, like all that kind of stuff, I thought that was fun, but like they had to mess it up with having all these other relationships, and it just really just did it wrong for me.
Like, okay, this movie is National Treasure.
Flip it over. There's the Illuminati eye. Somehow that leads to Sarah.
Yeah. I mean, okay, you're talking about the key element here. He writes his number on a $5 bill. She gives it away to a movie stand. They have the elevator moment, right, where they do hit the same button, but fate decides that everyone's going to intervene, and he has to go up 20 times more floors than her, and she waits, but still not long enough.
Why didn't they just both go to the first floor?
Because that's where they started, Bobby.
No, but they would have inevitably found each other there, and he could have been like, "Hey, look, it's fate. We saw each other here."
He steps on and then just steps right off and just waits.
Yeah, just stand in front of the same elevator and be like, "Wow, what a surprise. I found you here."
Where's the fun in that, Mr. I Want a National Treasure?
This whole like serendipity thing just caused their characters just years of misery, it seems like.
Well, I mean, they presented that they, like Matt was saying, they had kind of happy lives, and I know this tends to be a struggle for you, Matt, because you mentioned this when how they set up these love triangles, right? And the position that they create, because they never feel real. And it's what you mentioned. They have to make someone be a little off or a little skewed so you can feel comfortable with the idea of these people moving on. But I mean, you look at John Cusack's character, you look at Jonathan Traeger, and you see everything that he's doing, that his obsession was always there. And you kind of like, this is actually really good for Haley, Bridget Moynahan's character. Why should she ever be with someone who is this intense and is holding back so much because of this idea of fate?
She said at one point that he seemed like distant, but only that time period, but not throughout the whole rest of their relationship. She didn't say anything like, "Hey, you're weird again." Like from time to time you like seem like you're zoning out and thinking about something else. Like they only mentioned just right before the wedding. Like so what was the story there? Did he just like think of it all of a sudden but had forgotten about it for a long time or
Well, I mean, he ends up getting the book from her with her number in it. Let me just ask you, do you believe in fate? Do you believe in the nonsense that they're selling here?
not anymore?
Oh wow. This movie broke the romantic bone in Bobby's body. Holy crap. Oh wow.
This is Terminator 2. There's no fate but what we make it.
To be fair, like I feel like had they not had the two characters in relationships already, and had focused a little bit on the serendipitous aspect of what was going on, I think it probably would have been a perfectly fine movie. I at least as far as like I'm concerned, I'm sure there's probably people who were really into this movie and really into the relationship, but considering the fact that the two characters barely interacted, that basically meant that our only point of context on who they were as people is how they interact with those who are around them, and those who are around them were their spouses or soon to be spouses. So
Yeah.
the fact that you had them break up with them, I mean, literally leaving someone almost at the altar to like not even to have the benefit of like, what was it, the undergraduate or whatever, where you have the person show up and is like, break up the wedding, the vows or whatever, like, who here objects to this, this marriage or whatever. Like you don't even have that. It's just he's like, you know what, I'm gonna break this off for that girl that I haven't seen in years and years and years, and it just happens that we meet at the ice or skating rink at the end. I don't like that. That part of it would have been potentially fine if you didn't have the whole them already in relationships, for me anyways.
No,
Because
I totally agree. For me too. And I mean, to be fair, they didn't really spend a whole lot of time with the main two characters and their significant others either. Their most of the time was spent with them and their accomplices trying to like get them to do all this shifty stuff.
Which is the part you enjoyed, the caperness.
I mean, I like the serendipity part of it, but I mean, the way that they both went about it was shifty.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, breaking privacy laws and finding bills and
oh man, I wouldn't even want to see this movie in this day and age.
Yeah, the idea that he went through the process of, I have a receipt, let me go hit up the department store and make sure he pays me.
What would they do nowadays? They just hire some hacker?
Not even that. You probably buy a service order for $2 to find somebody. Ugh.
I mean, there's a question. Could you take this fate element? Could you do something like that with someone today?
I don't know. I feel like
it's tied to our usual question of how would you remake this film if you had the opportunity to?
Well, I think we already know how me and Bobby would get rid of at least one aspect of it.
No relationships.
I mean, I like the main two, but you're right. I don't think it's necessary to have two people nonetheless stood up on their altars. It's like, I don't think that was necessary. I think that it has more power for me if they're not distracted by somebody else, but going after that same person the whole time. I don't understand why that's so hard to do.
Well, I mean, the movie's asking a bit of the old question. I'm sure all of these types of movies get to this in a way. Do you believe in soulmates, or are there multiple people out there for you? Right? If you have a soulmate, are you willing to leave someone else for that soulmate because it's technically your soulmate, or is this just all a pipe
Well, but
dream
then what are they
and you could
saying?
love a lot
Because
of
the
people?
Jeremy Piven dude like went after his same woman. He wasn't like, okay, let me see if I can find a different one.
I mean, but they were getting divorced, right?
Yeah.
That was they're going to be separating. So I guess there's that aspect of it. It's like
Well, I
because I
know,
mean,
but the other ones are like they're like breaking up long-term relationships and they don't care.
I think maybe it wouldn't be such a bad thing to not focus on this aspect of it. Just I mean, like from a purely romantic point of view, like does this movie actually hold up as a romantic movie? If you ignore that aspect and you just look at it from a romantic movie, is it actually like because there's such a gap? Like, is this really even a romantic movie in that aspect? Like, do you even want to see the two characters together by the end? Like, I don't know if it really succeeds in it. Like, I like the relationships between the friends.
Mm-hmm.
I like Kate Beckinsale and Molly Shannon together. You know, I think I even commented my goodness, like this is the first Jeremy Piven character that's actually tolerable. So I kind of like their relationship for the most part. Um, I like we said Eugene Levy or whatever. Like I really liked his character. I would love to see a movie just with him. I would love to see a romantic comedy with him in it. I think that'd be really interesting to see. I don't know if that's. I'm sure in his tenured history, I'm sure there's one or two in there, but I like to see modern Eugene.
American Pie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
No,
was the first one I was thinking of as well.
no. There's got to be others. But like there's a lot of characters I was interested in. There's a lot of relationships I was interested in this. I just wasn't as interested in the two lead romantic characters as much. I
Okay,
feel.
I'll ask it this way then. Not the soulmate aspect of it. Could this be more of an issue with you talk about it like a more caper filled National Treasure style, but could there be an element of just the pacing? What we kind of watched, there were a lot of just dead spaces full of montages. Could some of that be shored up to make this a little bit better?
Could you imagine if they didn't make them montages and they just had them all blown out? It's been a 4-hour movie.
I mean, there was a lot of montages, a lot of vistas, a lot of watching sundials. There was quite a bit of stock footage, I feel, right?
A lot of stock footage. I know. Like was this the precursor to some of the stock sites nowadays?
It definitely felt like that.
I do remember like halfway through looking at the time and it was like, man, we still have 50 minutes left. I'm like, what is there to tell in this story?
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like they kind of played a little bit into the what would you call it, missed opportunities a couple times.
Yeah.
Oh, she'd be on one floor, he'd be on the other. Oh, his fiance is actually best friends with her friend or whatever, or good friends with her friend. And so like those played on missed opportunities, like, oh, they could have interacted. But then that also plays in that idea of like, was there actually serendipity if all those chances missed so much?
They missed a lot. I mean, there's an element here. It's the idea that there's someone who got away. Do you think that exists? That a lot of people kind of walk through life thinking about, there's someone that really, man, I wish this worked out, but it didn't, and you kind of just have to move on from it.
I can see that. I think that some people probably, go through that kind of mentality, especially, that, we're T minus 5 minutes to the wedding and you're starting to probably fill yourselves with the doubts and the potential longevity of a relationship like that being locked in. I could see that kind of playing into it. I think that the better version of the movie in my mind would have been that they did meet up and realized that they weren't those things and kind of looked internally at themselves and what their relationships were. I feel like that would have been a better turn for the movie as opposed to shattering everything in their lives for, I see I'm going back to that now.
No. But it makes sense why. I think it's hitting on a bit of a challenge where so many of these movies, you don't see the actual love story of the people or what would actually make them have a successful relationship because so much time was just spent on how did they meet. And I guess things are going to be okay.
It really kind of makes me think of is the deleted scene from Scott Pilgrim versus the World. The original ending of it had Ramona just telling me like we're just not compatible with each other. And so like this girl that, he'd been fighting for up until now, just kind of realized that, they weren't a good match for each other, even though they had gone through everything they had gone through. And even though I don't necessarily approve the relationship he had with Knives, he ends up with Knives instead because she had been there and there had been an actual real connection between the two where they actually had, she wasn't the mysterious girl, wasn't the manic dream pixie girl or whatever.
That seems to
But
make more sense.
they kind of ended up together, but they ended up cutting that because they felt that, how can you have someone fight for, someone that entire movie and then have them not end up together? Like, because sometimes you realize that that dream version of the person you're going for isn't actually what you need. And it actually is the person who, was there the entire time.
I mean, how many times do movies actually fulfill that though? You're naming the one, maybe.
Well, they didn't even do that because they deleted it. So no, you're right. They don't. I think the closest what it probably was Undergraduate, where like the two main characters are on the bus, and you kind of see it in their face that they're realizing it was a huge mistake doing the whole running away from the wedding thing.
Oops.
So, and it's not said, but you can the camera holds on them long enough that you can see them
for
going
like
from
30 seconds.
Yeah, like the euphoria of the moment wearing off and the reality setting in. You're right.
Life has to move on beyond this moment.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're right. You don't see that very often. It's very rare to see that kind of realistic nature. There's almost the love novel aspect of how these things end. And it tends to be the way that it ends. It's either very straightforward or something like this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, coming back to this movie and really thinking about, again, our modern perspectives, as I'll put it in, I feel like some things that were a bit cringy. I found the scene with the Frenchman to just be super uncomfortable and awkward the entire time. The scene where Molly Shannon meets Bridget Moynahan and the very uncomfortable jokes that they're making with each other.
Yeah.
Right.
And just going like, 2001 was a very different time.
It was a different time. You're right. Oh, yeah. It wasn't as bad as some movies. There are some movies when you watch it and they'll use words, phrases, jokes that definitely wouldn't, pass today. And I know that phrase gets used a lot. You couldn't make this movie today. I don't think that this one's probably as bad as I've seen others. I think that even movies that I enjoyed have moments like that sometimes. And I'm like, oh no. This one, I think that the moments you pointed out are probably the ones that are probably the most standout moments when it comes to that kind of stuff. I think just the nature of what happens in this. I mean, I think that if you did this movie in modern times, social media would kind of make it really quick. Like you would probably be able to find the other person pretty easily, all things considered.
So they make the movie today, but they have to set it in 1990.
No, I mean, maybe you could still do it. You could have it so that, I don't know, maybe the other person like isn't on social media or something, or, block them or something. Like that's the modern equivalent. Like you blocked them, like they didn't meet on the elevator or whatever the modern equivalent of that would be. We still use elevators today. That's not outdated yet.
Not quite yet.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm still surprised they had cell phones in this. I know it's 2001, but it feels like widescreen format TVs, skinnier monitors, and cell phones. That threw me for a loop for 2001.
There was some like high tech in this film. I mean, old tech, but high tech
for the time
we were looking at, for sure. I mean, I'll come back to the question I asked. We'll just say, both of you give an answer. Do you believe in fate?
No.
You shook your head first. I was like, is he going to say it?
No. Definitely from this movie, no. There's no destiny. There's no fate. I might have been iffy before, but now I say no for sure.
I love it, Matt.
Me personally, I feel like not with this movie, but I think that there's tons of other movies that have done a great job. I mean, like Your Name is a great example of it. Where like literally, I'm not going to throw spoilers out there, but literally like events that, pry two people apart in literally fighting, to get together or whatever. I feel like they have great examples of it. I just think this movie is not a great example of fate playing a part in a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a wild thing. And I think that is the romantic element in terms of you want to believe that love can be found at all costs, through all obstacles, through the randomness of the world, two things fight entropy and somehow come together to have this amazing relationship, which we don't get to watch because the movie ends too soon. This is everything we kind of want to be sold on. I think, Matt, you made the comment, this is a movie you think that I would love.
It felt that way. Like seeing you watch this movie, I was like, I kind of get the feeling like there's at least parts of this that he's really into.
I do love bad romance films in a way, and this hits a lot of notes. But I think I needed to cut out the montages and just get to the point.
That was like me and Bobby over here, like, oh, terrible people trying to, skirt their relationships. It's awesome, just like these montages, man. I just can't.
Because I think it's what Bobby mentioned. I definitely wanted to believe in the caper nature of it. I like to give into the idea that fate could potentially work this way, knowing full well it doesn't, and kind of get entertained by that. But this was definitely a little bit of a challenge. But I think that leads us to the perfect question we always like to ask. Matt, are you recommending this film for people to watch in this day and age?
No, I don't think that this is a good representation of this time period as far as romantic movies. I don't think that at the end of the day, it's probably worth watching compared to other romantic comedies from this time period. I think there's better.
Bobby, your wife, hits you up and says, "Hey, I want to watch Serendipity." What are you telling her?
I'd probably say okay. But I do not recommend this movie. If she says she wants to, I'd say okay, let's watch it. But I would not say to her, let's watch Serendipity. I think there's better romantic movies to watch last week we watched a better one.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
With the same dude in it.
You couldn't save this one, huh? Well, we've got to get more with him. Where is he? I lost his name already.
John Corbett.
Thank you, John Corbett. We need more movies with him. Well, he's 50-50 for us now. So maybe he can swing us to be another positive as we move on. I'm gonna sit in the same boat. This was a little tough. If you want your movies cheesy, yeah, maybe, but you could find some cheesier ones that really hit those notes in a good way on Netflix. I'll tell you that right now. So maybe not so much Serendipity, and we don't believe in the fate of this movie. There it is. As always, thank you for listening, and remember, the absence of signs is a sign.